Okay, good morning, everybody. These are going to be just some quick video instructions on how to complete the force versus acceleration pre-lab. So this right here is the assignment that you guys will see in Canvas, and you can see that as soon as you open it, it's going to prompt you for your name and your class period. So make sure that you guys fill that in right at the very beginning. You'll see that our objective is now that we've finished Newton's first law, we're going to move into now studying what happens if we have an unbalanced force and can we make any predictions based off of that. And so you guys will see that the objectives is that in this pre-lab, we're going to be using a simulation to measure how a force exerted on an object affects the acceleration of the object. And then you guys are going to measure how does the mass of the object affect the acceleration if you have a constant force. Okay. And so on slide number 3, you guys will see that there's a link to the simulation. Go ahead and click on that link and it will take you to this. So let me go ahead and actually close this and I'll show you guys what the simulation looks like. So I'll click and open. Okay. Now you're going to have 4 options. The first option is going to be net force. Second is motion. Third is friction. And the last one is acceleration. And so if you guys could click on the tile that says acceleration, that's going to be the one that we focus on. Okay. So here we have our object, and you can see that the objects all have different amounts of mass. You can grab your object, you can put it back, you can put another object, you can put things on top of the object, etc., etc. You can see on the bottom that there's a little sliding scale for applying an amount of force on your object. And so you can see that if I was to slide it forward, you'll see that you gotta push it, push it, push it, push it, and it looks like not even 500 newtons is going to move it. So very cool. What you will also notice is that at the top right, there's going to be some checks that you can take a look at. So one is going to be the sum of the forces, which is just another word for saying the net force, which is something that we went over yesterday. You can click on the check for values. If you click on that, you'll notice that if you have, for example, masses and speeds on, if you turn values off, some of those numbers will go away. And then you can also click on something for acceleration, which is actually going to be super important for when we collect force versus acceleration. The last thing that you're going to see is a slider. And on the slider is that for friction. You guys are going to want to turn off the friction, basically make it ice, so that nothing, is affecting this object's motion. So make sure you turn off the friction when you collect your data. Okay, so let's go back over to the slides and the instructions. And you'll see that on slide number 4, it's going to first ask you to type in what is the constant mass that you're going to be doing. So if I go back to the simulation, you can see that I have 200 kilograms right here, and I have 40 kilograms right here. And so 200 plus 40 is 240. So let me go ahead and type that in. And this is going to be just for me, okay? You guys are going to have your own values that you're going to be working with. Now, if I go back to the simulation, you'll see that I'm just going to give it some forces and I'm going to measure the acceleration. So for example, let's start off with 10 newtons. Actually, that might be really small. Here, let's see if I can even give it. There we go. Okay, so you can see that I'm giving it 10 newtons and its acceleration is measured right here. It's going to be 0.04 meters per second, which tells me that every single second that's going to pass, this object is going to gain 0.04 meters per second. So I'll go ahead and write that. So 10 newtons and 0.04 meters per second per second. So I'll put this in 10 and then 0.04. Okay, and then you guys will keep doing it. You can pick obviously your own values. You guys should be experts now. And once you have those values, you're going to want to graph force on the y-axis versus acceleration. And that way you guys can make a relationship based off of that. Okay. Very lastly, I'm trying to keep it brief. You guys will also be taking in mass versus acceleration given a constant force. Okay, so let me go back to the simulation. I'm going to go ahead and pause the simulation and reset it. Okay, I'm going to want to switch it to no friction. I want the masses, I want the acceleration, and I want the values. Okay. And now I'm going to have a constant force. So that's where this little thing is going to be a little bit more important than the sliders. I find that the slider is a little chaotic. And so I'll pick a constant force. So let's say I pick 200 newtons. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down. Okay, so 200 newtons. And now I'm going to go ahead and change the mass and see how that affects the acceleration. So the mass will be my independent variable and the acceleration will be my dependent variable. And so let's go back and let's just pick some values. So let's say I want to do 100 kilograms and then my constant force is 100. So let's see what the acceleration is. Or no, I said 200. I apologize. Obviously, you can fast forward this video. Okay, here we go. So it looks like 200 newtons on 100 kilograms is going to be 2 meters per second per second. So let's go ahead and do that. So we got 100 kilograms and we got 2 meters per second per second. Now you can see that the simulation was going a little too fast, and so the person kind of like fell off in the previous screen, which is totally okay. You can always stop it and you can redo it again. Just make sure that you don't pick values that are too high. It's like a kind of general best fit for doing that. Okay. All right, so once you guys have all the values, you're going to graph mass versus acceleration. And then once you get that, you're going, or sorry, I already said graph it. So once you get the graph, you're going to answer the discussion questions. And so here are your two discussion questions. Sorry, there are 7 discussion questions. And just do your best to answer them. This is a pre-lab, and we're going to go over the answers on Thursday. But you know, if you haven't looked at the questions, you're going to be at a bit of a disadvantage for that. So do let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys on Thursday.